OOS is one of the major reasons for non-conformities into the pharmaceutical industry. And that's the reason regulators are seriously looking into the OOS investigation and the OOS closure. In the year 1993, the Bar Laboratories has raised an issue of retesting. And USFDA has found that the sample was retested until meeting the specification. And this one incident made USFDA to launch a guideline into the 2006. So in this presentation, I am going to walk you through what are the different steps one has to consider during handling of the OS, how the investigation can be undertaken, and finally how CAPA and the OS can be closed. So let us have a look at presentation. So what is the scope covered under the OS? And here is the point number 1. So the raw material are also considered under the OS. The packaging materials needs to be investigated in case of there is a specification failure. Of course, the finished products, the stability samples, and in-process samples. So all these 5 different products, the raw materials, packaging materials, finished products, stability samples, and in-process samples comes under the purview of out of specification. Then let us understand how one can report the OS result. So you have to give the product details. It can be about the product name, the batch number, this test, it can be about the product name, batch number, the packaging details, or the stage of the product, whether it's in process, finished product, or the stability study. The point number 3 is how one can give the description of the OS. So here are the few examples. So the description of the OS can be given that, for example, an observed assay value is 92.5% against the limit of 95.0 to 105.0%. The observed value for impurity A is 0.6% against the limit of not more than 0.5%. Let us now understand some important considerations, and here is the point number 2. So in case of multiple batch failure, you have loaded a sequence, and during this sequence run you have loaded, for example, 10 different batches, and out of these 10 different batches you found that the 2 batches are not meeting the specification, but the 8 batches are meeting the specification. So are you going to raise 2 different OSs for the 2 different batches, or are you going to raise only single OS for this multiple batch failure? So it is always preferred to raise the 2 different OSs, a separate out of specification report for the 2 failed batch. The point number 3 is, in case if you have a multi-component test product, for example, telmisartan and hydrochlorothiazide tablet, and you analyze this tablet with the common analytical method for assay, for example, and you found that both the components are out of the specification. So are you going to raise a separate OS for each component, or is it okay if you raise a common OS for both the components? So as the method is common, and hence in this case a common OS stands valid. You can raise a common OS for both the components. The third important point is, do we need to take separate OS for both assay and RS if assay and RS has common method and assay and RS is failing? So it's a common method, and in case if both the assay and both RS are out of the specification, so do we need to take the separate OS, or can a single OS suffice the requirement? So in this situation, a single OS for both assay and RS can be a sufficient one because the method is common and probably the root cause may be a common, or root cause may be different also. Which specification, whether a release spec or stability spec must be followed during initial analysis of the stability batches. Now, most of the times for finished products, the organizations will have a stringent specification during release time, and then the relaxed specification which meets the regulatory requirements during the stability spec. Now the point here is which specification needs to be followed, and the answer to this, the release specification needs to be followed during the initial analysis of the stability sample. So these are the few important considerations one has to understand before moving into the OAS. Now what are the considerations you must have during reporting of the OAS? So look at the point number 1. Now in case of replicate sample analysis, the result of individual sample along with average values shall be reported instead of reporting only average result. So for example, you have a procedure saying that the average of 2 injections in case of assay. So rather than just reporting the average value, it is a good idea to report the individual observations for 2 different assay values. The point number 2 is reporting result of all parameters for particular test together shall be done instead of reporting result of single parameters having OS. Example, in case of multi-component assay analysis, report all other past components assay results shall be reported along with the OS result. So you need to report the assay result for past components and the failed components altogether to understand which component is passing and which component is really failing. Point number 3 is in case of more number of batches, the number of batches and results of each batches analyzed shall be documented. Now for example, if you have analyzed 10 batches into a same sequence and out of which one batch is failing, so it is also important required to report the result of remaining 9 passing batches along with the failed OS batch. Point number 4 is the result and acceptance criteria with correct number of decimal places and unit of measurement shall be documented. So this is pretty much easy to understand, and it is required to report the result up to the required decimal points. The 5th is in case of stability analysis, stability condition, pack and time interval and orientations as applicable shall be documented. The point number 6 is any abnormal observations found during analysis shall be documented. So for example, let us say during a dissolution test, undissolved tablet residue found at the bottom of the jars of tablet 1 and 4, whereas the other tablets were found dissolved. Now this one observation can help in investigation during the investigation. Sample solution of API was found turbid. The sample of X lot took longer time for dispersion as compared to other batches, etc. Or the bulk solution of eye drops injectables was found turbid. Now these are the few important informations which generally helps during the investigation, and hence analyst must keep eyes on such kind of abnormal observations. Let us understand the few important common terms into the OS, and the first one is the assignable cause. So what is the assignable cause? The assignable cause is generally a laboratory error. So it can be a dilution error, it can be a sample preparation error, it can be an error associated with the laboratories. The second important point is atypical root cause. So what is the atypical root cause? And here is the definition. An unexpected or unplanned event outside the control of lab, which is not in the control of lab. Example, damaged sample, the power failure, environmental conditions, lab supply problems, shortages, etc. So all these problems comes under the atypical root cause. The third is repeat test or remeasurement. And here is the definition. the prompt testing of retained stable solution of the sample. So if you are analyzing the available old sample solutions, then it is called as the repeat testing. The fourth one is retest, and here is the definition. Repetition of the analysis of the original sample or resample is called as the retest. In retesting, you are preparing this sample solution, standard solutions once again freshly and then analyzing them. The fifth, what is meant by corrective action? So the corrective action is the action taken to eliminate the root cause behind detected nonconformities. So what is a nonconformity? For example, nonconformity is the SPLC interruption because of the high back pressure. So the SPLC interruption because of the high back pressure is the observed nonconformity. And what is the root cause behind that? That you have to identify it. And if you are eliminating the root cause, for example, the system developed back pressure because of the unfiltered mobile phase. So eliminate the usage of unfiltered mobile phase is called as a corrective action. So every time in the future, analyst must use the filtered mobile phase. Now this is called as a corrective action. The sixth one is the preventive action. So what is the preventive action? Action taken to eliminate the root cause behind potential nonconformity. So now the system has interrupted because of the back pressure, and we know that the alone usage of unfiltered mobile phase is not only the root cause behind this one event, and there may be another events or root causes for the system interruption because of the high back pressure. So what are those reasons and root causes? It can be about the usage of the wrong salt or usage of the more amount of salt during mobile phase preparation. It can be the usage of unfiltered sample solution. It can be usage of the column which is not properly flushed, and that may further lead to the system back pressure. And these are the potential root cause for the available observed nonconformities. So taking care of them, eliminating all those root causes is called as the preventive action. The point number 7 is the analyst error. So what is analyst error? And here is the definition. An error that is attributable to the person performing the test that resulted in an out of specification result. So whatever may be the analytical error, because of the analyst who is executing the activity, it can be, let us say, pipetting error, sample weighing error, dilution error. So these errors are called as the analytical errors, or sorry, analyst errors. Then the obvious error. So what is the definition of obvious error? And here is the definition. An error resulting in an out of specification result which is detectable by direct evidences from the electronic data of the analyst performing the analysis. So if the error can be detectable with the help of available electronic data, that is called as the obvious error. For example, the peak integration. So the peak integration can be reconfirmed with the help of electronic record. And if it is found that the analysts have not made the right integration of the peak, and because of that the OS has observed, then this error is called as the obvious error. And the last but not the least is the laboratory error. An error associated with the performance of a test procedure or due to laboratory equipment malfunction or the failure. So most of the times in phase 1 investigation, the purpose is to identify the laboratory error. Now let us understand the point number 6 is the field alert report in case of US. In case if you have filed this product, if you are providing this product to the US market, then one has to raise the field alert report in case of OS now. So within 3 days of the reporting of the OS, the FAR must and should be reported. And this is only for the US market, by the way. if the batches for which the OS is observed are under distribution in the US, in that case the OS needs to be the FAR needs to be raised. But it has very remote chances, because unless and until you release the batch, probably your system will not allow for the batches distribution. The third point is the batch distributed in US and OS is observed during stability. So as a part of your annual stability plan, the particular batch has charged for the stability, and the same batch has been distributed into the US market. And if you observed the OS for that specific batch during, let us say, 12 months of a long-term stability condition, in that case the FAR must be reported. The FAR is not required for OS during in-process stage. So in case if the OS is observed during in-process manufacturing, then FAR is not needed. Now let us understand how one can undertake the phase 1 investigation. So in generally, the OS is investigated in two phases, phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 investigation is to identify the lab data accuracy. So what has happened during the analysis, whether the analysis has been happened correctly or not, or in short, to understand the accuracy of the laboratory data. So it must be thorough, timely, unbiased, well documented, scientifically driven. And we are going to explain the phase 1 investigation with the help of very simple formula, that is LDA equal to 3GSC. LDA stands for lab data accuracy, and this lab data accuracy can be confirmed with the help of 3G, 3S and 3C. So what is the 3G? The 3G stands for glassware, GLP and the GDP. So understand these three important G's during the lab data accuracy. The 3S stands for sample, standard and the solution investigation. So investigate the sample, standard and understand the solution used about the failed batch. Then 3C stands for the calibration, calculation and the competency of the analyst. So based on this 3G, 3S and 3C, lab data accuracy can be evaluated. The further, once you identify that, and during investigation, if you want to investigate something, now this can be further understand with the help of this equation, that is LDA equal to Re diet F. Now this Re diet F is an acronym, and let us understand what it stands for. So D stands for dilution, and there is a re-dilution. So in case if you found that the analyst must have done a dilution error, then during an investigation a re-dilution study can be planned. I stands for injection, that is re-injection. So in case if you found some error during the sample injection based on the chromatographic data, then you can re-inject the solution available into maybe HPLC vial, or you can fill the solution available into the glassware and then inject it and then understand what is the outcome. E stands for extraction. So what is meant by extraction? So as a part of sample preparation process, for example, sonication is the extraction technique. Then understand whether there is any error happened during the sonication time. And if during investigation it is found that the sample solution was not sonicated for the specified time into the method of analysis, then the available stock solution of the sample can be further extracted for the additional sonication time and then analyzed as per the method to understand the impact of additional extraction, that is additional sonication time. The next is the T. T stands for the test. So a retest is generally not permitted as such unless and until if your sample solution is not stable, unless and until you prove that the sample solution's integrity is doubtful, or you have a questionable sample in your hand. So the retest can be done only and only in case if your sample solution is not stable. or the integrity of the sample is under question. So the retest can be done with the original sample or the resampled quantity. And F stands for the filtration. So refiltration. So in case if you are doubting about the filter used during sample or standard preparation, for example, as per method of analysis, you are supposed to use PVDF filter, but as per the evidence, analysts have used nylon filter. Then the sample solution can be refiltered by using PVDF filter and then understand what is the result. So all this investigation is further going to help you in understanding the laboratory data. Now, as a part of investigation, if you found that there is no lab error, and if there is no lab error found, then you can go to the phase 2 investigation. The second outcome could be if there is a lab error found. So in that case, what has to be done? Now verify the assignable cause with the experiment by deliberately making same error. Now for example, if your batch is failing for assay and you found that the analysts have used nylon filter in place of PVDF filter, and because of that assay could be lower. So you need to prove once again, you have to prove once again by using the nylon filter paper, yes, the assay is really coming on the lower side. Then retest the original sample by original analyst by correcting identified cause. And the second step is what? You have to analyze the same batch, preferably by using the original analyst who has reported the OS, but by taking the corrective actions now. For example, if the filter paper used was wrong, instead of PVDF, the nylon filter paper was used, then analyze the same batch by its same analyst by using now PVDF filter and then understand what is the result now. So if the result is passes, then release the batch. But if the result is further failing, then you need to investigate the failure. Now this is all about the lab data accuracy or the phase 1 investigation. So in case if the phase 1 investigation concludes that there is no laboratory error happened, then you have to start the phase 2 investigation, that is the investigation of the manufacturing now. But you have to keep on conducting the phase 1 investigation, that is the lab data accuracy investigation. So the phase 2 investigation is conducted and which is called as now the full scale investigation, and it is conducted by VM3 process. So what is the VM3? And VM3 stands for vendor, man, machine and method. So you can investigate the vendor who has supplied the raw material or the excipients or the solvents, the man, the operator of the machine during that particular batch, whether the operator has a sufficient training, whether the same operator has an experience of handling the same product, then the machine, whether the machine is suitably validated, and what is the past history, the recent history of the machine's maintenance, whether there is a recent spare part change into the machine, anything related to the machine can be investigated, and the method or the process of manufacturing. This is called as the VM3 process. Then the next one is the product deficiency observed. In case if there is a product deficiency observed, then straightforward you can reject the batch. But in case if there is no product deficiency observed and your investigation comes to be no manufacturing error, and if there is no laboratory error, then it is become a very peculiar situations and how to take a decision further. So in that case, you can analyze the product by multiple analysts, for example, by 4 number of analysts, by duplicate preparation, and if all 8 results passes, you can release the batch. But if all 8 results are not passes, then you can reject the batch, or further you can think of the re-investigating the root cause. Now as a part of your investigation, you have to define the kappa. The corrective actions and preventive actions needs to be implemented, and it has to be thoroughly monitored for its effectiveness. And finally, the OS can be closure. Now, what are the key elements that really contribute for the OS, and how one can avoid the OS by looking into those key elements? So the point number one is setting the practical specification. So it is also very important to set the practicable specification, and this is possible for the in-process samples. Also need to be vigilant about the monograph or any such specific requirements. It doesn't mean that we can set the relaxed specification for the finished product. We need to meet the monograph requirement as well. The point number two is a right set of weighing, dilution and pipetting. Now, if there is a scope for laboratory error because of weighing or dilution or the pipetting, then one has to be very clear about the optimum weighing range or the suitable dilution or the usage of suitable pipetting volume. It is always preferable to have the single weighing during sample preparation. The weight of the sample or the standard should be more than 10 milligram, preferably in the range of, let us say, 40 to 50 milligram, so that the analyst can weigh those standard and samples very comfortably, and hence the minimum error will be possible. Then the dilutions, so avoid multiple dilutions, the errors will be minimized. Avoid multiple pipetting, the errors will be minimized. And also it is important to use bulk pipette for all your pipetting experiments. Also understand what is the response of your analyte. So develop a method with the optimum response. In case of assay, what is optimum response? So that you will have the repeatable and reproducible result. The next point is adequate solubility and stability and methods accuracy. So decide onto the diluent in such a way that it has the good amount of solubility for your APIs or the sample. So if your API doesn't have a good amount of solubility into selected diluent, there is a chance for analytical error. Then the stability of the solution. It is a good idea to develop a method or select a diluent in which the sample and standard has a adequate hours of stability, maybe 2 days or 4 days, so that it helps during investigation, and have a method which are accurate, precise. The fifth one is smaller variability. So the smaller variability is the concept wherein you are now deciding onto the methods parameters which yields the minimum variations. It is about this, let us say, the replicate injections of the standard. So how much is the possible RSD when you have the 10 microliter injection volume versus, let us say, 50 microliter injection volume? And if you found that the 50 ml gives the lower RSD or standard deviation, then go with the 50 microliter. So one has to be very clear about how to minimize the errors or variation during the analysis, because the more you reduce the variability, the less chances for the errors, and hence you will end up with the incidents or the OS in the future. I think these are the few key elements one has to consider to avoid the OS. So we have completed the entire OS closure, starting from its beginning, then comes the investigation, then understanding the root cause, then defining the kappa, and then finally verifying kappa and the closure. So I hope this presentation now must have given you an overview how one can complete the OS investigation, or how one can close the OS investigation. So I hope you must have got an overview on how one can close the OS once it is raised. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I will meet you soon in another such kind of interesting video. Till then, thank you, take care, and bye bye.